blessed Sunday to us. This will never be lost in any textual appreciation when we come to today's gospel reading, when masyak jud ta, because Jesus called Peter Satan. Of course, the text here you don't see, but there are texts in the Bibles or in some other prints like what I have used here. The Satan there is a capital S. And when we say capital S, kabalo tagkinsa na. But the text tells us very clearly that Jesus was using an expression, because Satan here in the text is not a capitalized S, but it is a small s. And in the Hebrew language, Satan or Hasatan with the article is always considered an obstacle. Because when we consider the whole of scriptures, if we go to the book of Job, especially chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the book of Job, part of the heavenly council actually is the Satan with a small s. And what is the role of the Satan? The role has something to do with objecting in order to purify certain cases. Now, you know, in the Vatican, those who are familiar or have knowledge about the procedure of sainthood, there is what we call a group of cardinals that are actually named devil's advocate. Because they just don't take in somebody and say, okay, himo na nato ni santo. Muna nga dugay kayo ang proseso sa pagkasantos. Because there are so many things that they have to take into account. And there are people or persons assigned in order to oppose. Not to oppose that in the real sense of the word, but to try to say, tinuod ba ni, ana ba na, no? Kaya pagkakuti-kuti ba? Because it's not something very, very easy really. In fact, literally speaking, dili biya pod sa yun ang masantos. No? Usahay ignon natas mga karaan, ang magantos masantos. But in our times now, ganahan ba ta nga magantos? With the luxuries of life nowadays, no, di naman ganita kuan, we have to have so many things that are instant, di ba? Mahilig ta sa kanang naa na dayon. Dili na kinahanglan nga antusan pa o kuanon pa ba, no? Dawat na lang taglimpyo ba? And I think this is a very interesting challenge for our times nowadays, when we have all the luxuries available. And this is precisely at the heart of today's gospel reading as well. Those who want to follow me, and kinsa may atong sundon, si Jesus. What did Jesus do? What happened to him? He suffered for us. So if we follow him who suffers for us, then we also have to embrace sufferings in our lives. He carried his cross. That's why we also have to carry our crosses. Murag nag-istorya naman siguro ko ninyo, no, atong balik-balikon ba? Kay para murag nainindot kayo nga mga reminders ba, no nga? Katong asawa ba? Kay hinumdum mo ato nga. Yung simba siya, niya, wala siya makuyugi sa iyang bana kay wala ka mata og sayo iyang bana. Nya ang gospel at mga adlaw ni ingon ang pari nga, if you want to follow the Lord, carry your crosses. And who are the crosses? What are the crosses in our lives? So the priest explained. So to make the long story short, mag-uli sa asawa, ning sugat niya ang iyang bana, gihalukan siya, good morning love. Kanya ang asawa ning react, ning respond. Iyang gi kugos ang iyang bana bisag bugat. Ingon din iyang bana, ngano imo mo kung gi pasan love. Ingon din ang asawa, ingon mo gud ang pare ganina nga, we have to carry our crosses. Anyway, kamo na'y bahalaan ang modungag sa istorya. Kapila na nako balik-balika. Di ko pulan ana. And then, following him. Okay, following him wherever he goes. And where was Jesus' direction when he was living among us during his time? It's always directed towards Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is not a place where we find carousels, no, where we find mga Ferris wheels, where we find ferias, where we find there's so many things that we enjoy nowadays. Jerusalem is first and foremost a place that we climb. bukid na tungasunon. And then at the same time, pag abot sa Jerusalem, he faced his destiny and he was crucified. And these are the things that we have to always remind ourselves. Precisely because following the Lord, when it comes to our own understanding now, with certain exceptional clauses for the fact that our freedoms are never curtailed. We are given freedom. Maunay usa sa mga precious gifts sa Ginoo nato. Our freedoms are always respected, but we are always reminded to use that freedom according to God's plan for us. Giunsa man nato paggamit ang atong kagawasan? Is it being used in order just to satisfy our own longings and our own desires? Are others included in that particular freedom? Muna nga, adunay nindot kayo nga saying, once freedom stops when the right of another person begins. And this is what St. Paul is reminding the Romans in his letter in our second reading today, and also for all of us, to offer ourselves as worthy sacrifices so that we will find what is true, what is perfect, and what is the will of God. And when we say the will of God, it is not only what we want and what we feel. There are so many things that we have to adjust. And for as long as we live, we do not know when the time comes. From this moment on, until the time comes, is a great privilege, an occasion for us to do something that is fitting according to what He wills. Ug naamay masayop, naamay madiskarel, naamay mosimang, we still have time to go back to the proper direction. And so with that, we thank the Lord for these great occasions in our lives. And as we continue to thank Him and to pray for the still many wonderful things He has in store for us, we have to take into perspective what He wants us, what He actually wills for us. Because as He said in today's Gospel reading as an end, when the Son of Man will come in His angels, with His angels in His Father's glory, we will all be judged and we will repay according to our conduct. And so we continue to pray for strength and for the desire to follow the will of God in our lives, despite the so many things that challenges us in this world, in the here and now, until we reach that forever that He has promised for us. Amen.